everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschooling mom. This is Raising A to Z. It plays all about homeschooling, and it is that time of year. It is time for a lot of parents to start thinking about what is coming for next year. A lot of parents are starting to think about and research and make decisions about possible curriculum for next year. And if you are a new parent or homeschooling for the first time and you're starting to think about homeschooling for next year, you're starting to think about curriculum possibly as well. One of the questions I get asked all the time and that I see all the time is, where do I find the curriculum? That's a very good question. Where do you find curriculum? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I do that, why don't you take a second, go down and subscribe, and then click the bell to get notifications. That way you get notified when I put out more videos all about homeschooling and curriculum and stuff like that. Where do you find curriculum? First off, we need to take a real quick second and say you need to check with your local area about what your requirements are. That's the first thing. So some places have specific requirements about what subjects need to be taught. Some places have requirements about what curriculum is used depending on where you live. So you definitely want to make sure that you check that before you go into the curriculum search. It also is going to depend on a few things. Like, for example, it might affect your funding. You might get money if you decide to homeschool. I don't live in that area, unfortunately. But some places do have like funding allocated for homeschoolers. That funding might have strings attached to it. It typically does, and tells you what kind of stuff you can buy with the funding. So I also know that's a very common rule when it comes to like charter schools. So very common rule that I do see is that you cannot purchase religious material with funding. So definitely want to make sure that you check those things, see what your rules about your funding are, what you can spend on, what you can't, and figure out what you're willing to spend on curriculum to begin with. That makes a huge difference because it does affect where and what you're purchasing, obviously. There are ways around it. I know some people who do get funding, and instead of buying their religious material with the funding, they pay for like music lessons or different like online courses or whatever. And then they just allocate a small amount of money to purchasing whatever curriculum they want to purchase. But it's just something to think about, that not necessarily everything you want to purchase is going to be covered by your funding. Just think about it. Now, I live in Ontario. Ontario has no rules about what is required to teach and no funding. So those are not situations that I have to deal with. But yeah, just think of that before you get into your purchasing. The idea of like where to find curriculum can be very overwhelming, because it is not like just like going to a store necessarily. There's, like when you're saying, hey, I need to find acrylic paint, where to go get paint. You're probably going to go to a craft store or a hardware store. You might have to search around for the exact color or whatever, but you kind of have an idea of where to go. Homeschool curriculum is not exactly the same. There's a lot of different ways to find homeschool curriculum and a lot of different places to purchase it depending on what you're looking for. And I'm going to go over that today. So the first place you can purchase homeschool curriculum from is from a homeschool curriculum store. There are some stores out there. Some of them, in Canada, they're pretty few and far between. Like a store that has like a wide variety of homeschooling curriculum. But they do exist. I personally use the Learning House, which is in Ontario. I order online and it comes directly to my door. So you can look at a place like that. The thing with online homeschooling stores, you can't necessarily like browse. Some of them do have physical stores, but like the Learning House is like 4 hours from my house, so I'm not going to drive there. But as a person who knows what I'm looking for, I kind of just go on and pick what I need, right? You can definitely go to the like in-person store if not you're ordering online. So you have to be aware that you're not going to necessarily be able to look through everything. So kind of you do need to know what you're looking for before you go in and make your order. A lot of times returns are not accepted. And the other thing that I find is the shipping is quite expensive. But often there is a free shipping event. So if you sign up for their email, you'll be notified when it's free shipping, which saves me I think it's like almost $15 or $20 when I do my typical once a year or big order. So it does help, but definitely something you want to keep in mind. The Learning House only has free shipping, I think like 2 or 3 times a year. Unfortunately, they just did one in April, but I often see them do one kind of end of May, June time as well. And then I think they do one in the fall. But keep an eye out for things like that. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that sometimes homeschool stores are not allowed to sell certain things outside of their area. So for example, the Learning House can ship to the United States, and they do ship to the United States, but they have certain products that are not allowed to leave Canada because there's an American version and it's like in their contract and stuff like that. So just be aware that sometimes you cannot get things shipped to Canada or from the United States, vice versa, depending on the retail. And that's like curriculum specific and retailer specific. Just be aware. The second place you can find curriculum is directly from the company. So a really good example of this would be something like The Good and the Beautiful. They're a very popular Christian curriculum company. They ship directly. You purchase it just directly from them. They are not available in stores. They're not available through a retailer, only from them. A lot of companies do this. I know Gather Round is another example of that. One of the things you need to think about is you can't necessarily see it. So make sure that you do your research. You can't necessarily return it. So again, do your research. And the shipping tends to be very expensive. Like I complain about shipping from the Learning House, like from the store. The shipping from these places can be astronomical. These places you can be looking at like upwards of $100 because they're coming often, especially as a Canadian, they're coming from the States. And so you have like duties or customs on them. They have the shipping costs. Like it can be a lot. So I know some people who, they have a group of them who do one order and they split the shipping costs. I know some people who just, consider it part of their expenses. And some of these companies do have some like downloadable options, which does help, where you can like just buy the PDF and you print it yourself. So that can be really useful, especially if you're only purchasing like one or two resources, because it does help with the cost. Because like I said, sometimes you're buying directly from the company, it can be super duper expensive. Anyway, another thing to think about when you're looking directly from the company, there are a lot of smaller homeschool unit studies, homeschool curriculum companies out there that run on a much smaller level. And they are also direct from the company sales. Often I find those people are downloads. So you do have to download everything, but then you have everything and you can kind of pick at what you want to use. An example of that would be like Harbor and Sprout, Gather Round. Those places are almost exclusive. Gather Round does have print, I think. But a lot of those places do have like, that is their only way that they do it is through PDF. I do a lot of stuff through PDF as well because it's just a great way to get homeschool curriculum into people's hands. It lowers the cost on like my end for like shipping. I don't have to worry about shipping it out to people. People don't have to worry about paying for shipping. It's direct to them. They can print it when they need it or want it. And it's a great option. So definitely look for a company. You can look at companies and buy directly from them. You can purchase things from companies like TPT or Teachers Pay Teachers. I love TPT. I have a whole review on it. It's fantastic. I love it because it's not very expensive. You can really look for what you're looking for. There's lots of options in terms of like subjects. And again, it's all like downloads. So you just pay and download, and then print it off as you need it. That's a very popular option for a lot of parents, especially for a lot of people who are looking for unit studies or novel studies. It's a great option. Another place you can go and find a lot of curriculum, especially if you're like, I really want to look through it, would be to go and find a homeschool convention or a homeschool conference. These typically have a low or small registration fee, where you register, you go in, there's going to be talks. People from different homeschooling experts, educational experts will be there to discuss things, and you can listen to talks. But there's also going to be a lot of vendors, and vendors are going to set up, and there's going to be often like tables, and they can like have different curriculum that you can open and look at and do. And so you can purchase right from them, or you can kind of look through and go back and purchase from somebody else. So it gives you a lot of options, especially if you've never seen it and you really want to like look through in depth. I did go to a conference. It wasn't a homeschool conference. It was a teaching conference. But it had a lot of homeschool companies because it was a private school conference. And I remember like I spent like a whole afternoon just like looking through curriculum books because there's so many out there and there's so many options. It's a great place, and often because you buy it at a conference, you might get a discount. So definitely a place to look for curriculum. You can also buy curriculum used. So this is kind of a cool thing that sometimes people purchase curriculum and it's just not a good fit for them. Sometimes they've purchased curriculum and, you know, it comes like, maybe it's like a textbook and you like write the answers in a notebook kind of situation. Sometimes people have like different kinds of options like that. Readers or programs that they've used and are just done with now. You can definitely buy amazing curriculum used. Definitely look again for at conventions. A lot of conventions and conferences will have like swap meets or like markets where you can buy used. Personally, you can go online on like homeschool groups or Facebook groups where you can find like curriculum swaps or curriculum materials, people selling curriculum. That's kind of hit and miss. You're not always going to find what you're looking for, but sometimes you can find some really good deals. It's a great option. You can also look at like your used bookstores. Sometimes they have materials like that. Also, used bookstores are great if you're looking for like novel study books. That's like my go-to first place I look is at a used bookstore in terms of things like that, because it's often way cheaper, like way cheaper to get them used. And it does help kind of keep the budget in check. Lastly, you can find some curriculum at like your regular retailers. So Costco often carries some homeschooling curriculum, especially kind of like July, August, September time. They have like curriculum workbooks. Chapters Indigo often has workbooks. The dollar store often has like kind of like basic math printing kind of workbooks, especially if you're looking for younger grades, like kindergarten up to like, I'd say even like grade 2 or 3. You can find some really cool stuff in like your regular retail stores. Now, obviously it might be a little hit and miss. It might be there, it might not be there, but sometimes you can find some really good stuff for a great price. I know the Canadian Smart, is it Canada Smarts? What's it called? I have it over here. Complete Math. That's what it's called. Like the Complete Canadians, Complete Math, Complete English. Those kind of series are often available at Costco for like $20, and people use them kind of as their spine for the year. So you can find some really great curriculum available locally. Originally, when I started buying curriculum with Alexi when she was in kindergarten, a lot of the curriculum I bought was from Chapters because I found some really cool stuff there. That's where I found Chalkboard publishing books and that we still use today. So definitely don't discount what you're looking for at Chapters or in a place like that because it's not like official homeschool curriculum. As long as it's something that's teaching your kids and it's, you know, working through and it's doing what you want it to do, it's curriculum. Simple as that. Those are kind of the big places to look for curriculum. Curriculum is a very personal choice. What you choose to buy, how you choose to buy it, where you choose to buy it, all factors. But yeah, this definitely gives you an idea of where to find it. Because sometimes that's a job in itself sometimes, especially if you're like more isolated or not necessarily near like a big urban center. Finding curriculum can be a little bit trickier. But yeah, there's a lot of great curriculum out there. You just have to look for it. Thank you so much for watching. You'll definitely want to make sure you subscribe because I am going to start talking about what we're using in terms of curriculum, what I picked up for next year, all those kinds of plans. Those are going to be coming up very, very soon. And you definitely want to make sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok because I'm going to be putting out like little tidbits and sneak peeks and things like that all over the place. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys next week.